think she said yes. I feel like she's moving that last week.
That's what I think when we met with her, she said I don't think you maintain it.
Okay. No, I do remember that.
Yeah, she was saying that she could come on in.
Yeah.
So, so I'll kind of defer to you a little bit.
You'll see her. I'm sure you've seen her. That sounds good. I mean, I'm fine.
Oh, yeah. And I'll let you take the This is now, if you haven't ever seen this, this is now a map. Even a month ago, it was mostly yellow around the country with a little bit of they're calling it red. Now, which is low transition. So, it is a lot. Oh my goodness.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock, so we're ready to start. Remind everybody, one, thank you for coming. This is a meeting of the Board of Education in the public for purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. We will have a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in agenda item 3. Before we begin, I have a couple things that have brought my attention that we need to move to amend the agenda. And so I'm going to make a motion first that we amend the agenda for Roman numeral 3A and B switch them and move the YMCA offerings to Roman numeral A, the athletic training contract issued to Roman numeral B. Second on that.
Second.
Thoughts or opinions? How much color roll, please?
Mr. Redden.
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore.
Yes.
Mr. DeGrove.
Yes.
Mrs. Iser.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith. Yes.
Second, motion to amend the agenda is to add an agenda item Roman numeral 6C under financial reports requests to add an agenda item for discussion of public records requests. Make a motion to that effect.
Second.
Thoughts or opinions? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Redden.
Yes.
Mrs. Iser.
Yes.
Mr. DeGrove.
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith. Yes.
All right, now the official roll call.
Mr. DeGrove.
Yes.
Mrs.
Here.
Iser. Here. Mr. Skidmore.
Here.
Mrs. Smith. Here. Mr. Redden.
Here. So let's stand together for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roman numeral item 3A, YMCA offerings. Matt?
I'm going to have Mrs. Vicki Daniels come up and speak, the Executive Director of Child Care Services for the YMCA. We started a partnership with the YMCA last year, around this same time, just kind of giving an update about where we are and where we're looking at moving forward with that partnership. So thank you for coming, Mrs. Daniels.
Thank you for having me today. First, I'd like to draw your attention to this PowerPoint that we printed out. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if yours is color or black and white, but so I have some talking points to try to stay on task, if that's okay. So first, let me just share that we are excited to report that we currently have 14 preschool-age children and 18 school-age children in our program. And we are an ODJFS program, which is the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. We maintain ratios to improve quality outcomes, and our ratios are for preschool is 1 to 12, and for school ages 1 to 18. According to ODJFS ratios, we follow these. When children are combined, we follow preschool age ratios. Just sharing this as informational because this is some things that have come up, and I just want to bring up that later. Preschool age children are typically enrolled in the Valley View School program and then come to the YMCA program for an extension of their day and or the before and after care wraparound services. And school age children are engaged in the YMCA before and after school wraparound care. So I'm going to go into kind of our presentation to keep me on task here. So basically the YMCA is so much more than a gym and a swim that just shares like our history. We've been in the community for over 150 years. There's 13 different locations around the greater Miami community. So then it brings me back to the Valley View schools and just sharing with you more of the details specific to our program. So I know that there's been a lot of discussion in the community involving like how many slots we have and why don't we have more slots and that kind of thing. And I really want to speak to that because it's important for you as the board to know what's happening behind the scenes. And really a lot of it comes down to the concern that everybody has right now is the ability to get staff. And so I want to talk a little bit about what we've done. First of all, when the pandemic hit, I want you to know that across all of our sites that were open even prior to that, we have maintained services. And if the pandemic continues to impact us, we will maintain services. That's our goal. We understand that people need to work, and we want to be able to be that reliable resource for our families in our community. So in saying that, I want to just share some things that we've done to try to overcome staffing as an issue. So we've worked incredibly hard to overcome the staffing challenges to make this happen. Our current teachers work 6:30 to 6 p.m. most days. And that's just on ratio to ensure that we are able to offer reliable care. Obviously, that's not ideal, and that's not a long-term solution. So When the governor, I shared about when they mandated the closure of other businesses and asked schools to close, YMCA applied for what was called pandemic licenses, and we have never shut down. I have not had a day, my child care staff, we have never shut down. We want to be community minded and we continue to do that. Our future ability to grow will be dependent upon our ability to recruit, train and retain staff. Obviously your referrals and district referrals are going to be important. But honestly, I'll tell you, we anticipated more stay-at-home parents, moms, in particular, that might be willing to come and work with us, especially in our preschool program that was in the middle of the day. And for whatever reason, that has not happened. We've not seen that come to fruition. So what we've really done is we've packed into more of we've cast our net further into Inglewood and other areas to see if we can get some more teachers. And that's what's happened is we've been able to get some additional folks that way. We also have hired teachers with credentials. And then we've also hired teachers knowing that we will need to help them get their CDA credentials and or school age endorsements. So we're getting staff and we're training them so that we can continue to try to improve our services by expansion. We also have recruited students that are attending Miami University, and we are paying them both wages, and then we're also paying for their tuition through the Work Plus program. So we have a couple of students that are working through that process with Valley View. We also have begun hiring high school students. It's important to know that the goal of hiring these high school students is to grow our own. So they're basically being used in the supplemental program as assistants to read to our children, to help with art projects, to give the children one-on-one attention, and basically to help us improve the quality. But our goal is to grow them. If they are not 18 and have a high school diploma, we can only count them as supplemental. They do not count on ratio. What does that mean? That means that teacher that's in that room needs, the extra help is great, but we can't increase the number of other children that we can take. So we can improve the quality for the ones that we have with the high school student, but we can't take additional children until we have another person that is graduated and 18. Okay, so they have to have the high school diploma and be 18. So I wanted to make sure the board knew that. That has been a challenge that we have been facing. Now that we've had more time under our feet, it's getting better and better, and we're slowly starting to increase. We've increased to 2 classrooms now for our preschool program, and that's helping. We do have some children with IEPs, individualized education plans, and the school district has been working closely with us and helping us with them, which is what school districts typically do, and we appreciate the supports that this particular district has provided to help us. We have, when we get the children within the first 30 days, we do what's called a Breakdance Assessment to determine where their current baseline is, so we know how to, change their daily schedule and what we're doing with the particular children. So I'm really proud of the efforts our staff have put forth with really trying hard. I mean, working those kind of hours is incredible. In addition, I'm excited to announce that we received just recently last week news that we received a 100% licensing inspection, which basically is the pathway to increasing our step up to quality rating. And so I just wanted to share kind of a little bit about what we've been doing to make sure you're aware that we are aware that there's a need in the community for care, and we are working toward that to increase that. I will also just real quick jump over to just reading 2 impact stories, if you will, of families that shared with us. We've been so impressed with the staff and environment of the before school program at Valley View. The rooms are warm and inviting, and our first grader has a safe, calm place sitting out before school in the morning. Miss Brooke does a great job communicating with parents, and we couldn't be happier with the program. Again, I don't think you'll find that the concern is that there's any quality issues with our program. I think you will find that there just needs to be more spaces. So another family says, my family is very grateful that our school partnered with the YMCA when we first moved to the Valley View area. We were not concerned with getting our youngest daughter into preschool, therefore we never added her to a preschool wait list. When our youngest turned 4 years old, she was adamant she wanted to go to school with her older sister and brothers, and we were concerned we would not be able to find a good preschool for her. When we heard about the new YMCA Valley View preschool program, we were thrilled that our daughter would get to be at the same school as her siblings. We are so thankful to the YMCA and our school for bringing this program to our school. It is important to make sure the first classroom experience is a wonderful experience for a child, and that is exactly what we have found with the YMCA Value Program. When we went to the open house, our hearts were filled with joy. Seeing the classroom decorated perfectly for preschool-aged kids and meeting Miss Melissa and Miss Brooke, we knew that the YMCA Valley View Preschool would be the perfect place for our daughter. Since the first day of school, we have absolutely loved this program. Miss Melissa and Miss Brooke provide a wonderful environment for learning, creativity, and social interactions. Our daughter comes home with crafts daily, tells us all the fun things that she is learning about, and she has started writing her name by herself within a matter of a few weeks. Communication and connecting with the teachers has been perfect. The teachers are readily available, and we feel very welcome to talk with them about how the day went, any concerns, and just staying connected. Ms. Brooke does a great job having the preschool participate in school events such as the book fair and even Red Ribbon Week. We could go on and on about the wonderful things about the YMCA Valley View Preschool program because it has been a blessing for our family. Truly, Miss Melissa and Miss Brooke do an amazing job daily with smiles on their faces. The YMCA Valley View Preschool program has been an important and much needed addition to our community. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to share a couple of reviews. And again, like I said, I think that ultimately the concern is just, do we have more space? So in the packet, going back to the PowerPoint, it just talks about, you know, the trainings that our staff do get. So no matter what level, even a high schooler will get these same trainings. We will make sure that we're growing them and giving them skills. And then our hope is that if they volunteer for us, that will help them get hours towards their community service graduation seal if they want to do that as well. In this page here, it just talks about what are we doing, what are the components that we're doing with the students. This is the dosage and what we do can change as needed for each district. Again, these are our hours, 6:30 a.m. to the start of school, and school's out until 6 p.m. And we are here for calamity days, available early release days, teacher professional development days. If this particular value is not available for us for an all-day out, we offer it either at the Preble Y or they can go to the Kleps Y, which is in Inglewood. So they can either go to Eaton or they can go to Preble, whichever is more convenient for them. And this just talks about what are we doing with them today. I want to draw your attention to the rate page, because if you just look at that, you might be like, whoa, that's a rate increase. That's actually the same rates that we released previously. But what we have done, I don't know if you're aware of this, we've actually done for this community in particular, is if they paid, like they did an automatic payment plan where we don't have to call them and it's not it's not intensive on getting their bills paid, then they qualify for a reduction. So right now, if they're doing the forced care only, they're paying $45 if they're doing the APP. If they're doing aftercare only, they're paying $45 if they do the APP, automatic payment plan. And if they're doing the before and aftercare, they're paying $80. So there's some savings. And then if they're a YMCA member, or they're a military family, or EMS, or a teacher, teachers actually get up to a 25% discount, okay? So there's some opportunity there. And keeping the kids engaged. There's also, if they cannot pay, no matter how much you discount it and they qualify for public funds, we also accept public funds, and we'll work with the families to ensure that they can go that route. And if they don't qualify for public funds because they make too much money, but not enough money, then the YMCA has scholarships to help them as well. So there's all different ways for them to be able to afford this program. At the end of the day, our goal is to be a safe, reliable, quality place for them to be. We're trying to expand our services this year. If you know, last year we started in September, so we've not done a summer here at Valley View yet with our current structure. And so what we're going to do is we're going to offer July 5th through August 12th for day camp this summer, and see how that goes. What we're doing is we're making it accessible here in this community so parents can drop off and pick up here, but then we'll actually take the children on a bus and we'll take over to the Eaton Y so that we can provide services there, so they'll be able to do swimming, the outdoor pool, and that kind of thing. So they'll have some opportunities, and then we'll also be taking them on field trips so parents can sign up for 1 week, they can sign up for all the weeks offered. This is kind of a jumping off point to see how many parents are interested in that. If that time frame doesn't work, if they want to start like right as soon as school gets out, they can go to the Preble County Y, or they can go to the Y in Inglewood and say, okay, I'll drop off and pick up here. If they want to go to West Carrollton, they can drop off and pick up in West Carrollton. I think those are all three equidistant from here. So, and then we're also going to offer a preschool camp, and we solicited a couple of parents that are currently enrolled just to see what the need might be. And we're going to try this year. We're going to do August 15th to August 31st, and see how, because it's going to lead up, since you folks have such a more of a late start to the school year. This will give, and we're going to put priority to the current enrolled preschool families first, and then we'll start to add. Our goal is that that we're not overlapping day camp and preschool, so we can open up some more additional slots for preschool. And then fall session will begin on Tuesday, September 6th, when school starts back up. So that's kind of my spiel in a nutshell. Just wanted to update you. Again, I know that we're running a quality program. We're very proud of the program that we're running, but again, it needs to be, I know, more accessible. We need more slots. So we're working on that. I just wanted you to be aware of that. So thank you.
So one of the things that we did with Y is as part of our strategic plan, we wanted to be able to provide more preschool opportunities for kids. We already have a very outstanding preschool within Valley View. There has been a waiting list problem, which one of those letters alluded to. So being able to partner with the YMCA so that we can have a partner that can provide still additional preschool opportunities without that being an additional cost to the district. So thank you, Vicki, for coming in, but I didn't know if any of the board members had any questions for Vicki about preschool or anything else like that.
We'll also say that, in case you don't know, we do have an agreement with the district, and we are paying 5% of our revenue, so there is a revenue share as well that goes back to the district. So
just in clarification, you said that, staffing is an issue and you're working on that. If you had, optimal staffing, do you have the space you need to expand? And how much could you expand?
So I don't know what the actual need will be. It sounds like it's pretty intense from listening to like the community, discussion pages. So right now, if I had perfect staffing, I know that like as far as school age, no problem. We have the space. It's pretty easy with the space. With preschool, we would probably have to eventually expand more than the 2 classrooms that we have. It also depends on how the children enroll. If they only enroll for before, like the AM portion, then we have that PM portion available. But if they enroll for a whole day, they're taking a slot for the whole day. So if they only ever did part day, everybody only did a part day or some sort of wraparound, it would be 28 slots for preschool, just to give you an idea. And then school age, 72 slots. And school age is very easy to expand, and it's when you combine them. So in the morning, if we have preschool and school age combined because of staffing, you can only take 12 or 14 depending on the youngest preschooler.
Quick question for you. Page 5 of your presentation has the child care engagement components. And I see a footnote there that says districts can help determine dosage and areas of focus.
Yes.
What percentage of your districts do that, and what does that process look like?
Honestly, I would tell you that it has increased in the ones that are doing that, and it comes down to relationships. I've been in the Dayton block for 8 years, and it's only been the last, I'd say, since the pandemic, we've really been engaged because we did the remote learning, and we had 63 kids from each district, a lot of places where we partner directly with school. So it's the curriculum directors a lot of times that get engaged with us. A lot of times my interaction is typically with like the business operations manager, or sometimes it starts with the superintendent, but then mostly I interact with student services or with the curriculum director, and they can determine that. And we're totally open to that because every district has their, what they're interested in.
And that was a major selling point to work with the Y, that they would partner with us. It's not the same as our preschool. They're willing to take steps to make it similar to what we do.
And I will also say, and we take great pride in this, is we are accessible. So like when Ben calls us or Kevin has called us, it doesn't matter if it's Sunday night. There's been times when they've called me on a Sunday night and they're like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, text or call, yeah.
I have not texted you on a Sunday night ever. Just like, I'd like to put that out for official record.
Okay.
I challenge you to find the
Okay.
me
Will you give me money if you
No, Dr. Pepper. So So
Coca-Cola, no deal. So anyway, but bottom line is we're accessible, and we want our program to reflect this community and be what this community needs. So each program that we offer, it's not a cookie cutter. It's based on what your school district wants. So that's why I said this summer we're trying it to see how it works out with this day camp model, to see is there a high need for before and after in day camp or isn't there? And we don't know until we try it. So thank you.
Just a real quick question. I saw on the discount page that it says that teachers are entitled to priority and a discount. Is that something that you ever open up to classified staff or district staff as a whole? Or do you do that anyway, but it just says teachers in here?
Yeah, so it's implied, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, good question. We do offer it to district staff as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to agenda item 3B, athletic training contract.
So I'm going to have Andrew Marlett, Athletic Director at Valley View, and Lori Oda, Manager of Sports Medicine and Athletic Training for Kettering Health. I think, Lori, I got your official title, didn't I? I stole it from the email. For the board, if you're not aware, our contract was coming to an end with Kettering Health, and so what we do is we poke our head up and we reach out to some other people to see what type of deals and what would be the best services for kids. And through a process, a pretty rigorous process, we've engaged and we've selected to continue our relationship with Kettering Health. And I'd like to thank Lori. She's done a fantastic job listening to me a little bit, listening to Mr. Marlett a lot more about his vision for where we wanted to go athletically with our students. And you're going to see some of those things reflected in that contract. So without any further ado, I know we're hopefully voting on that contract later on, but I thought it would be important, when we're signing a 5-year agreement, to have some discussion about what that would look like. So I'll let Ms. Oda take it away.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me this evening. This started really about almost 2 years ago, I believe, when I got to tour the ground of your new facility, and I know that is still continuing to evolve. And then many discussions between Mr. Richards and Mr. Marlett, and just figuring out what you guys need within your community. And Kettering Health is one. I actually took over my role in 2014. I was Eaton's athletic trainer, so please don't hold that against me. But for many years, but it was one of those where trying to figure out, Kettering Health is not just signs and billboards. It's about how we can contribute to the community, how we can improve the health and wellness within the community. And so listening to the needs, we try and do several different things. One is education and providing, whether that's nutritional talk or health fair, something for the school district each and every year. And that's working with Mr. Marlett and Mr. Richards to figure out what that need is. Some choose health fairs, and others choose to have a nutritionist come out and speak to the athletes or to the whole. We have a book about over 30 pages long of various different speakers and presentations and things that we can do through Kettering Health. Obviously, our AT services, that's probably been the longest standing piece of what we've contributed to the community here. As long as I've been an athletic trainer, and way before I was an athletic trainer, Nikki Bennett was here, and now it's with the help of Nikki, and normally in the fall and sometimes in the spring we also have Brittany Shao. So we've increased just knowing the volume need and the growth of your community over the last couple of years, and that's one thing that I have promised to Mr. Richards and Mr. Marlett we will continue to do, as hopefully it becomes a K-12 site here. Impact testing, and really talking about more of a cognitive concussion-based testing. Impact testing, as many people know, is used across the country. We are currently also in a SWAY trial. It is a device that you can use it on a mobile device. Impact testing, you cannot do that currently. So Mr. Marlett said, well, can I be in that trial? So we actually added Valley View to the trial now, and then depending upon what concussion-based testing the research and the data and the information is out there that best suits the needs, we will be providing that to the community here. Also, we allocate some money for marketing, so then if there is a need, and that was one thing that we had discussed, whether that's banners or billboards, paying for a spot on a scoreboard signage, we kind of allocate that, so then we need to pay for that each year. It is there. Also, we had talked about maybe doing something as far as t-shirts or a different type of marketing that's a co-branded piece for the community of our Valley View athletes. Medical supplies, one thing that Mr. Marlette had said is, medical supplies can be quite daunting, especially during COVID, because everything has been put on hold, and getting pieces one by one is to say, well, can you guys take care of that and just put, here's, roughly what that cost would be for your similar sized school across the board. And then he doesn't have to worry about any of those bills. We get actually a discounted rate through the hospital, so it makes it a little bit easier and is really provides an increased budget for Brittany to order from. And then the last and final piece is really that health and wellness. So I believe in, what's going to be the best for your guys' community. So providing some health and wellness dollars, and that's a direct to the school each year. And whether you guys use that to do renovations for your weight room, whether you stockpile that and put that back to do a larger project that not only will your athletes be able to use, but the rest of your community. I had a school that used it for their walking track. They asphalted a nice walking area around the school, put some mile marker signs, and that's what they did, because it also brought not only the athletes to the land of that school, but it also brought the parents and grandparents onto that community, onto that piece of property. So,
Did you want to touch on the length of the contract?
Yeah, so the length of the contract.
Part that Mr. Richards
Yes, so the length of the contract is 5 years. So we traditionally do anywhere from a 3 to 5 year contract. 5 years allows really, to see that change, to see that investment. 10 years is obviously a lot of times a little too long. So we want you guys to be able to come back to us. For you, 5 years, your land's going to look very different. Hopefully your enrollment numbers are going to look different. Everybody's going to be on one campus, hopefully by the end of that 5 years, and that's when we can have that next discussion. Do we change, do we evolve your contract, and where do we go from that point?
Just echo a few things Lori said. First of all, thank you very much for all your hard work and Ben's hard work on this. But I think the billing piece, which you mentioned, is huge. Right now, when Brittany buys something, I then get an individual bill for each of those items, and literally many bills every time Brittany's got to order stuff. This billing will allow Brittany to order whatever she needs out of the budget allotted to her, and all the bills go to them. We save invoice time and PO time and all that stuff. So I think that's a benefit for our staff, very much. Purely for me, that's a little selfish maybe. The education piece is huge. One of the things I told Mr. Richards and the committee when they hired me, I'm going to focus on strength and conditioning and the health and wellness of our athletes, and injury prevention is a huge part of that. The nutrition piece, hydration, sleep. I'm trying to use my words carefully here, but it's just amazing what some of these kids eat or don't eat, how they sleep or don't sleep, and their hydration. And we've got a huge opportunity to improve there, and I think this contract and the re-upping with Caring Health will help in that area and bring in people besides our own coaches to speak to our athletes on that part, even speak to our parents and just get everybody moving forward in that. The health and wellness of the athletes is going to be huge. It's going to help in injury prevention. There's all sorts of studies on that I won't bore you, but dehydration is one of the biggest reasons for concussions. It's one of the biggest reasons for tendon tears and muscle injuries. So nutrition is a huge piece that I think our kids can take a huge leap for. So that education piece, and the amount of that is in there, but we can utilize that money to bring in specialists and speak to our students and our parents. I think the other thing I want to just talk about, Lori mentioned the dollars that we can use maybe to buy some weight room equipment or to upgrade our training room. But again, I think, and Ben and I've had some discussions, and I think there's just some future ideas that we can look at our entire health and wellness package, and this is a big piece of it, including strength and conditioning, where we can move forward and take our athletic programs to the next level. It's going to help us win. It's going to make our athletes, keep them healthier, which is huge, reduce injuries, but also set them up for a life of a healthier lifestyle. And I think that's a big part of what we should do as guys and travel. So I think this contract sets us in that right direction. There's a whole bunch of other things we got to add to that, which I think are some future conversations. But I'm very excited about it, and I fully support the contract.
Anybody from the board that had any questions for Mr. Marlett or Mrs. Oda about the contract or athletic training?
Yeah, and I don't see anything that specifically speaks to it. I could be wrong though. The marketing money and the health and wellness money, is that cumulative from year to year, or is that so like if it doesn't get spent in year one, is that gone, or can
So
that build
your
up?
health and wellness money, that is a little over $11,000, it'll be direct to you guys. I make a check request and it comes directly to you. We deemed it, I believe, to come in August. So right at the beginning of the school year, some school districts opt to break it in two payments. They said, well, if we have the beginning of the school year, that's great. That means we can decide and do what we need to. So that's what I had inputted into the contract here. That way you guys, it goes into your bank account. It can go specifically towards anything health and wellness related. I'm not picky. So I had a treasurer that was very particular at another school district. They needed a golf cart or a new gator to get back and forth. And I said, if it's going to be used for the safety of our student athletes as well as the health and wellness of the community, then that's perfectly fine. I will say some competitors do get a little picky when it comes to the health and wellness dollars, and I am not one of those people. As far as the marketing, I would work with Mr. Marlett and Mr. Richards, so I allocate that on my side. So it is budgeted and it's just a year to year. And so if that is a new scoreboard item that is needed as far as the display, or if that's t-shirts, we just did towels. So if you've been in the athletic training room, there's a lot of new Kettering Health towels. I purchased those for all of our schools to go across the board. So we can kind of pick and choose and work with you guys on that.
Can you talk a little bit about access? So if unfortunately an athlete is injured, more so than than an athletic trainer can, if they need to see an orthopedic doctor or whatever, is there a priority for our student athletes, or how does that work?
Absolutely. So we have two different options. We have both our orthopedic that is on our now Kettering Health Washington Township campus. It was Southview. And we are going through a name change, but we have ortho after hours. They're open 5 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday and Saturday morning year round. Minus the holidays, that's about the only day that they're closed. And then we have priority patient scheduling for all of our athletes at our Far Hills location as well. So we can fast track those athletes in. If an athlete wants to be seen during the daytime hours, we have between Brittany, myself, and every one of my athletic trainers, we have behind the scenes numbers we call, and we just collect the information from the parent, work with the parent and the doctor's office, and get them in. Most of the time they say, can they be here in an hour? Great. Tell them to come in and we'll just squeeze them in the door.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to agenda item 3C. I have one individual who's turning the floor to speak in our public participation. Mr. Remmer.
Thank you. Well, thanks for your time and thanks for the working session last week. I'm here to ask you to right-size the building project based on the bond funds without using any future PI revenues. Please let me explain. The last 30 minutes of the session last week was helpful to better understand the building project and the current estimated cost to build. Although it has not been laid out in black and white, I have a better understanding of the total building project budget and current estimated costs. Based on that discussion with other details that I believe and understand, here's where I would estimate or currently summarize the building project from a budget perspective. The current plans for the school project are estimated to spend the entire planned budget, both EBLSD local share and state contribution. On top of those current plans, we're estimating to spend $1.7 million to upgrade the pitched roof on roughly 60% of the total structure, leaving 40% of the structure with low slope roofs. We anticipate to fund an additional $500,000 as our local share for a turn lane related to the project. We will either need to make some minor fascia improvements to the home or construction headquarters, or we will have to incur costs to tear it down. That leaves us with over $2 million over the budget before we even broke ground, with a plan to borrow from future permanent improvement PI funds to offset this overage. Additionally, everyone agrees that the estimated cost to build is only going to go up due to inflation, since the last estimate was in October or November timing. This would require that we borrow from more PI funds, or make cuts to the project. So the question is, why would we not make some right-sizing choices right now? More clearly, why would we not eliminate the pitch roofs that will only improve about half of the building's roofs, yet are driving a significant budget deficit? Are we really willing to cut classrooms or other needs to pilfer from future PI revenues to hang on to a pitched roof that will only cover roughly half of that new building? I believe the board is tasked with being financial stewards of the district and the budget, which includes forecasting where the budget might be guided long term. You cannot fully separate the building project from the school's operating budget. My understanding is that we'll be in the right position on the operating side in less than 5 years from now, which is normal to all school districts, and liquidating the PI funds for multiple years in the name of the building project only exacerbate this issue. I hope that the board will continue to foresee the potential lack of public support that would be there for another operating levy anytime in the next 5 years, and we would work to avoid that becoming a necessity for as long as humanly possible, which would include reversing the decision on the pitch roofs or finding over $2 million in other cuts to balance the budget for the building project. As I mentioned at my opening, my intent is to ask you all to align not to leverage any PI funds for the building project and to work within the allotted building funding to deliver the best as possible school. This should be considered as part of your fiduciary responsibility that goes along with your elected position. Thank you for your time.
Roman numeral 4, approval of minutes. First, we have in our board packets the regular board meeting minutes from February 14, 2022. We've all had a chance to look at those. I'd like to make a motion that we approve our minutes from the February 14th regular board meeting. Discussion? Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. DeGrove?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Next, in that Roman numeral, we have the minutes for the work session of March 14, 2022. I'd like to make a motion that we approve those minutes.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. DeGrove?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. Rudd?
Yes. Roman numeral item 5A, discussion of the building project.
So I think the work session was helpful, and we've already been putting out some pictures. So far, the comments have been positive about getting to see what's been going on behind the scenes for so long. It's taken some time to, I think people have finally been able to see that we've been working behind the scenes. It's not that nothing's been dormant, that we've been moving along. So as we said last week, the next phase would be hopefully here in April. The construction company is working on those estimates to find out what that is. So they should be done with that here in about a week. But we'll have those estimates and then start having to make some decisions about some of those budgetary issues that actually Mr. Raymer just kind of alluded to. Right now, it's still a decent amount of guessing, but hopefully here in less than a month, we'll have some things that are going to be much more concrete. So that's one of the places that we are with the building project. Additionally, as was alluded last week, it was a little bit of a surprise from the township. They have their right to put what they want. So we'll need to have some conversations, and I think Mr. Rudd, you said it really well last week. We're going to have to look at with that house, cost effectiveness to get what we want it to be and how to put it in compliance with the request, and whether that's the most cost effective way versus the demolition thing. So that's going to be something that now we have to start working on as we move forward. But we are full steam ahead and proceeding with that. There's still a lot of questions that we have to get fine-tuned as we work through that process. I think the phrase that I've used with some people is, it's trying to put Shakespeare on a fortune cookie. It's my English teacher self. It's how can we condense this down so that people can understand it. And it's not that we're not trying to be transparent. There's a lot of information, and how do we provide that with the context necessary to have people understand what we're looking at doing. But I think we're finally making some inroads on that process. We always can get better at that, and we are committed to trying to get better at that. But that's where we are with the building project.
I did have a question.
Yes, sir.
I had a community member come to me and they're concerned. I realized last fall the school board accepted the JED, but I guess the communities have not all accepted it yet, and there's going to be a vote coming up in May.
There is a vote in May. Thank you, Mr. Skidmore. I can take that if you're okay. So what happened for a JED to be approved? So yes, the board had to give permission for that to proceed because it's only affecting the school. Like, we are the only entity within that JED. So the school district had to give permission for that to continue. In order for that to have proceeded without a community vote, that would have taken a majority of the vote by Farmersville Village Council, majority of Germantown City Council, and unanimous votes in Jackson Township and German Township. Those criteria were not met. So as a result, that now has to go to a community vote. And so there will be a community vote on that in May. My understanding is that I think there are some entities getting around to start an informational campaign about that to make sure people are aware of all the things that are entailed. But I think what you're referring to, and one of the things that I've heard as well, if you don't mind me expounding upon that, is the question of if the JED doesn't get approved, what does that do to the building project? And the answer is absolutely nothing. If the building project, if the JED doesn't pass in May, the building project still proceeds exactly as normal. So I don't know if that's what you heard as well, Mr. Skidmore.
That was his concern.
Yeah, so I make sure I address that. Yeah.
But the JED could possibly, if passes, could generate revenue that could be possibly used for turn lanes if the township.
So that how those funds are used would be up to the JED board. If that is not for the district to decide. There was some, I think, I'm trying not to make eye contact here for somebody to put them on a spot that may have been involved in this. I believe the last iteration of this that I'm aware of, that there was some monies that were going to be contributed back to the district to use for improvements. So yet again, could there be something that could assist with that? Yes, but I don't want to make any statements about that. One, the JED board would have ultimate say on what they choose to do, but I believe, I'm seeing some nodding of heads from a person I'm looking towards, I do believe there were some funds that were allocated for the district to make improvements to the JED area.
So just to clarify, passage of the JED doesn't increase any pool of funds. Passage or failure to pass the JED doesn't increase any pool of funds that we have guaranteed discretion over.
Correct.
From a safety perspective,
Yes.
if we do not pass the JED, what does that look like for fire, rescue, police?
It's the same. It's the exact same. So I think some of the local entities, and I want to be careful about not making sure we play within our sandbox versus each of the political subdivisions. I think there would be some healthy debate about, and I think there has been some healthy debate within the political subdivisions about why a JED might be necessary and how it could be helpful on shared resources. From a school's perspective, though, when we build a school, they're going to provide fire service. We build a school, they're going to provide police services. So those things are already done. I think the question would be how much would that potentially stress some of those entities? And then I think we could have and I think there have been some robust conversations about that within the political subdivisions. But that, I would argue pretty strongly, that is an argument that the political subdivisions have been having about what is the best JED to put on place. Mr. Skidmore, I think your question is very valid because from a school end, the quick question that I heard, and I think you and I, maybe it was even the same person, but was the question of if the JED doesn't pass in May, does this alter a timeline for the building schedule? And the answer is no. So this is an issue the district said we are supportive of. Previous board said we support this. Political entities, you work on the best deal that you think is right for them. But I think if people had questions about the ins and outs of those deals, they should probably talk to their local representatives in their political subdivision.
Any other item, Roman numeral 5A, building discussion? Took care of a lot of that last week. Roman numeral 5B, recommend the board approve the resolution authorizing the signing of the property consolidation deed. Just speak to that.
So we were asked by German Township to consolidate our parcels. So this was a request that was made to us, and we are simply honoring their request. They thought this was a cleaner way of doing business.
What happens if we don't?
Some of those variances that the zoning township just approved would probably be a little bit different.
Would they become unnecessary? Do we need a variance relative to the Phillips house if we don't consolidate the lots?
I may have a different person that might be able to help me out a little bit on those questions. If I can look to the far back of the room. Mrs. Hill, yeah, I was referring to you, Mrs. Hill. So, Mrs. Hill has already had to recuse herself. She sits on the German Township zoning board, but she's already had to recuse herself from this. But she's a local expert that we can take advantage of her knowledge. So,
I'm not an expert.
okay. Well, comparatively between the two of us, you are an expert. So, yeah.
But I do have some knowledge.
Yeah.
When we first went into this with the township, knowing that there would have to be a conditional use applied for the school to be able to be placed on the property that we have, we asked the German Township what's their recommendation and what did they want to have done, because there's multiple ways to go about it. To your question regarding the Phillips house, if we kept the parcels separated, no, that variance would go away. However, there would have to be a variance for the road frontage, because we would not have enough road frontage for the conditional use. So it's a balancing act, and we were essentially directed by German Township that in order for this conditional use to go forward, you must consolidate these lots.
Mainly for the road frontage for.
Yes, for the road frontage.
Okay, so basically, what I'm hearing is, if we don't do this, we're gonna have to go back for another variance. I can only imagine how that conversation is gonna go.
Yeah.
And so,
Yes.
so we're still going to be at one way or the other, kind of at the mercy of the township. on
Yes.
this issue. Okay.
And not in a bad way. I'm not trying to.
No,
the
no,
township
no,
has been
no,
wonderful to
no.
work at. I don't want to make it sound adversarial at all, but that's just, yeah,
It's where we're-
6 one way, half a dozen another.
It makes sense for the school to all be on one.
Any other questions, or thoughts? Then you've made the recommendation, someone can make a motion that we approve the signing of the property consolidation.
So moved.
For a second?
Second.
Conversation, thoughts, or discussion? You might call the roll.
Mr. DeGrove?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser? Yes. Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes. Moving on to Roman numeral 6A, financial reports and requests. Recommend the board approve the financial statements for the month ending February 28, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Everyone's had a chance to look at the reports. Any questions or discussion?
I have just a comment.
Absolutely.
We're in the middle of collecting our property tax settlement this time of the year, and so that collection is going well as far as what I can tell. Could be March that we're complete, could be April, and so I don't know next month yet if I'll have final numbers on that. We'll see when the county sends us our final collection. State funding is all over the place. Ultimately it's going to end up good. But on your report, on the rolling report that we send a monthly breakdown, January we saw a very large influx of money, and that is when the new fair school funding model was put into place. and there was a bit of a catch-up, I guess, from the first 6 months of the year. We had been very steadily collecting $700,000 a month in state funding. That jumped up, and we collected $1.5 million in January. The interesting thing for me now in February, and I'm anxious to see March's final payment as well, that payment now is down below that $700,000 that we were receiving in prior months. It's at about $650,000. And so it's almost like their catch-up, they overfunded us in a way, and I've talked with other treasurers, and I'm seeing it in other places as well. So this isn't unique to Valley View specifically, I'm seeing it in other places too. But like I said, ultimately, for the fiscal year, I believe we'll do fine, and we should come out probably a little better than what we had anticipated.
So they came in 800,000 above in January.
In January.
So they hit 50,000 below for the rest of the year. We're still.
Yes. Yeah, and we'll still end in a good place. It's just, and I want to give you more details on that and how it specifically is impacting Valley View. They're still phasing in pieces of the funding model though, all the way into March. And so, like I said, it feels a little too soon yet to try to give you a bunch of details on exactly what that's going to look like. But things are going well financially. We're ahead on our revenue estimates, and we're under projection on our expenses. So things are very steady and very stable for us being only 4 months to the end of the fiscal year.
Questions? It's okay, we have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Please call roll.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes. Roman numeral 6B, recommend board approve the resolution accepting the tax year 2022 amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission. Someone to make a motion?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Would you like to share some comments?
I would be happy to,
Absolutely.
yes. This is a yearly item that's a routine item that's required by the county auditor. And all it's really doing is authorizing the county to continue to tax the taxpayers at the level that we've been taxing in terms of property taxes. So it's just approving those amounts and the rates that the Budget Commission has authorized. But again, this is no change to anything that we've been doing. It's just basically reaffirming that what we have in place, we're keeping in place.
Any other questions, comments? Would you please call the roll?
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes. Roman numeral 6C, is discussion of public records request. I was the one that asked that this be put on the agenda, so if you don't mind, Laura, when you speak to it, I'll make comments as to why I raised it. I do know that we get a substantial number of public records requests. There is a burden to the district in terms of time, and we all know time is money, in responding to those requests. And so at the same time, we have a legal and frankly moral obligation to respond to requests. And so I thought it would be healthy for us to have a discussion, a public discussion about one, what we do when we receive those. Two, to kind of get a sense of what kind of burden is on the district in responding to those. Three, to give some thought to and maybe some discussion among ourselves as to ways that we can proactively reduce that burden. And fourth, there's one particular set of pending requests that I have some ideas as how we might be able to move some things forward. And so, Laura, you prepared, I believe, the PowerPoint that you've given us.
I did.
Talk about that.
Sure. I put it in PowerPoint format just in case we decide we want to put it on our website or something down the road.
Sure.
But I'm just gonna hit a few highlights. First, I want to talk about what is a public record, and then what is our process to responding to those public records requests. And then one of the things, Mr. Rudd, that you would ask me for is what do we put out there? Like what's available without a public records request? What information do we have out there available? And then I have several resources then as well that we can talk a little bit about. So what is a public record? The statutory definition, and this is Ohio Revised Code. This is not something that's just made up. Like this is the law. And so it's Revised Code Section 149.43A1. A public record means records kept by any public office And so before I go on, I just want to share with you that this information I pulled from a 145-page document on the Sunshine Law. And so this is very much a governed process that all public entities, it's not just school districts, that all public entities must follow. And so we are a public office, and so we meet that requirement. The kept by is interesting. If you go into that document and read what kept by means, it means a whole lot of things. But a record, really it is any document. It can be devices. It doesn't matter what form it's in. But basically, it's created or received by or coming under the jurisdiction of that public office to document our organization, our functions, our policies. And again, these definitions just kind of go on and on and on. A couple of the things, just because of some of the requests that we get and because of why you're bringing this up, Mr. Rudd, why you asked me to look into this, we don't have any obligation as a school district to furnish records that is not in our possession or in our control. So if we don't have it, we don't have anything to provide. So that's, I think, an important piece to understand. We're also not required to create records to meet a request. So if someone requests a record and there is no record, there's no obligation for anyone in the district, whether it's me as a public records officer, whether it's you as board members, or any other school employee to create that record. So we don't have to create a record if it doesn't exist. And we also don't have an obligation to respond to duplicate records requests, and that was very clear in that document as well.
So the creation of records, the way I read it, and I'm not the board's counsel, but that would include reformatting to meet someone's specific requests, et cetera. Right?
And that would be a duplicate request as well. Yes.
So what's already out there? What do we already have out there available that people can
Sure.
access?
Yes. I was going to talk a little bit about our process for answering those requests. Can I do that first and then talk about what's out there? So when I receive a public records request, and sometimes those come directly to me, other times they go, we have a records request email address set up, and that actually is forwarded to me as well as the public records person, but it just makes it's out there on our website, it's out there available for anyone to find, to be able to request things. I acknowledge that request and I assign it a tracking number. With the volume of requests that we've received over the years became so high that for me to keep track of what the request was, who it came from, whether I'd answered it or not, I had to start tracking it by number.
We at one point had to contract out to process these requests.
Yes, we've done that, yes. So once I've acknowledged that request, I start working to fill the request. Sometimes that's just me, looking up a check that's asked for, or running a report in the software system for financial records, but other times it's other people. I receive questions about staff from time to time, like wages and benefits, and so I have to go to payroll. There's been times that we've been asked for information on transportation, and so I might go to Mr. Depew. There's various people throughout the district, email requests. I want to see the emails from or to, different people for this period of time. I have to go to the technology department, and they have to do a query and run a search, and then I have to read all of that to make sure that we're not providing anything that is confidential information or that's restricted information that is not a public record that needs to be redacted. That all has to be checked through the request. And there are times that we get legal counsel involved as well. I try not to do that because that is a cost to the district, but there are just times that they're the experts. I am not. I do well enough with public records, but I want to make sure that we're not providing something that's personal in terms of an employee or even a student, because there have even been student things that are requested as well. So that's kind of our process. Get those records back to that person, and we fulfill that request. You had asked me about cost. I can't tell you how much it costs. What I can tell you is from start to finish, the timing varies, but the most simple request takes 20 to 30 minutes, the most simple request. But many of these go beyond, where especially if I have emails and things like that to review, sometimes it's hours of going through and making sure that things are redacted appropriately. So I just had never logged that time, and so I don't have a number for you, but I can tell you that at a minimum, each request is 20 to 30 minutes.
What's the most requests you've had in a month? Just off the top of your head, just curious.
Well, I did attach to your slides just this fiscal year's requests, and there's 1, 2, 3. So there's 22 since July 1st. And these are what I consider to be official public records requests where there was a document. Sometimes we get just requests for information as well, where people are just asking questions. It's not, that doesn't include those. But there are 22 requests here on this sheet. And so I provided that to you just so that you can see that we do track this. We log it, we track it, we do our best to comply with the requests.
Would you say that this is more, you've been in other districts, you've had other experiences, so is this typical? Is this on average? Does this seem like a lot to you? I know it's a lot to somebody who's trying to be the district treasurer and fulfill public records, but just comparatively.
I think it's excessive. I think most of the districts that I've worked for over the past 20 years, there's times when you might have more requests, like if you have a levy on the ballot or if you're going through negotiations, there might be a few more, but 4 or 5 a year might be kind of a normal time frame. I will say that I have seen an uptick in other districts the last couple of years with all of the COVID and masking and all of that type of stuff. There has been an uptick, but this is a very large number of requests.
So are there some types of requests, and my whole reason for people bringing this up is I like to explore, because if there's some things that we just know this is going to get asked every year, right? What can we do to just say, listen, we're just going to make this our practice, and we're just going to publish it so that we don't have to field requests?
So I'll talk a little bit about what those resources are and what people have available to them, but I will tell you, other than maybe 2 or 3 requests, they seem to be all over the place. I don't know that I see that many repeats. There are a couple of repeats, but not a large volume of repeats. On our website, under the treasurer's webpage, we post the monthly financial reports that you approve every month. And so that does give that snapshot of where we are on a month-to-month basis, so that people can see if we're on track with our spending, or if we're, if it's off, if we're over, if we're under. Same thing with the revenues. And so we provide these reports again that you're approving every month for everyone to see. So that's one place. The Treasurer of State's office, the Ohio checkbook. We are part of the Ohio checkbook, and at the end of every fiscal year, we upload all of our data to be able to go out and you can look up any expenditure that we have. You can search by vendor. I haven't been on the site in quite a while, other than just to make sure our information's out there. But there are multiple ways to search all the information that we have that we spent for the year, and that's all funds. It's not just the general fund; it's every fund that we have. It's grants, it's food service fund, it's permanent improvement fund, and so on. The Auditor of State's website, you can go out and you can search for past audit reports. So that's available, and that's for any public entity. You can search for audit reports, but specifically you can find Valley View's audit reports for many years. I think there's over 10 years worth of audit reports available on their website. The Ohio Department of Education, there is so much there, even specific to Valley View, but in terms of thinking about what the public would want to look at, that's where you can go to find our 5-year forecast. And we have a link right directly from the Treasurer's webpage on our website that goes to the ODE website specific to the 5-year forecast. So that's available. Also on our website is all of our board policies. Anybody can go and search any of our board policies if they're looking for information. And then finally, in this information that I gave you, I did give you the link to that 145-page manual by the Ohio Attorney General's Office on sunshine laws. I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's more available, but these are the big things that I feel from a community perspective people might want to go look at or look for information.
The
We do it once a year. That's been our process. We, at the end of the fiscal year, we upload all of our data for the year and then it's available. So right now you can search for any data through June 30th of 2021. And I think it's got 4 years of history on there.
What is the process for updating that? How long does it take to just upload that data?
It's a program in our financial software that we need to run.
Can we set it up to run more frequently so that that data is real time, so that they don't have to wait till the middle of the end of the fiscal year to get that done from the year before?
I think they'll take it monthly, so I can check into that.
It might help if we just to get the information out there sooner. It
Sure.
might forestall some of these issues.
Yeah, I can check into that.
Great. And then, and I don't want to get into names or anything, but we have one public records request that the board's gotten repeat emails. And I seem to think that there's an impasse or disconnect. And tell me if this is a bad characterization, because I'm going to do the best I can. There's a specific request that has been out there and has been asked before, but prior responses have been formatted differently. And there was a subset of data, not even the entire amount of data, there was a subset of data reflected on prior responses that isn't on the current formatting that is directly responsive to the question.
Yes.
And the requester has asked, why is this different? Why is this different? Why am I not seeing this? Is there any reason, and I think the answer is that it's just not asking the right question, in my personal opinion. Is there any reason why we can't just pull the report of the subset of data that was on the prior ones that isn't on the other ones and just get that, even if it hasn't been specifically requested, just so that it comes off of your plate?
So there would have been different people running those reports, number one. And it's possible that different reports were run to get that subset of data. And so what was done in prior years, I honestly don't know what report was used or what parameter was used. We've also changed to a new version of our software.
Okay.
So we've gone from the classic version of state software to now what's called redesign.
When was that changed?
It was changed in, we went live in December, but we were training throughout the fall. But we don't use that old version anymore, so it's not available to us. And so, it's a completely different way to run reports, and the names of the reports are different, and it's just an updated, refreshed version. So that particular request, I have offered to sit down and to talk through what it is that individual is looking for. I've offered that dozens of times, to be truthful, over the last 4 years. So I think no. I mean, just with that software revision and with not knowing what a prior employee or person that was running those reports, how they ran it, it would take me probably hours to try to needle down into that.
And so you've made the request to sit down and kind of work through the system to
Yes.
address any concerns?
Yes.
And that's been responded to on the wall?
Either that or just a flat out no.
Any other thoughts on public records that we want to talk about? Okay. Let us move on to Roman numeral 7A. I recommend the board approve the following board policies. You have a list of board policies. We had our first reading at the February meeting, and you've all had a chance to look into these, and I will reiterate these are the policy changes that were recommended by the policy committee in conjunction with Council of Neola. We worked with to address both the statutory policies that need to be made and to keep us in line with what prudent districts are doing. And so these come with a recommendation both of Neola, our consultant, and with the policy committee consistently involved. Any questions? Someone like to make a recommendation that we approve the board policies as listed in the agenda? Make a motion.
I do.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any conversation, any discussion? Would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mr. DeGrove?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8A, new business. Personnel, there's a recommendation that we approve personnel action as recommended in the city board packet as attachment 3. Someone like to make a motion to that effect, or would you like to speak to these issues?
I think I have to wait until after you do motion for discussion or no, or can we just?
Either way.
Okay. No, we're pretty happy with people that we're recommending for different positions. A little bit bittersweet. Rebecca Pitcher, who is a teacher of ours, has been pilfered from us by the Montgomery County ESC, and I'll have a conversation with the Montgomery County Superintendent at some point in time about pilfering some of our wonderful employees. But no, we wish Rebecca, it's a great opportunity for her, and hopefully we still have the opportunity where, even in her new position, where she might be able to still help out and help out. And that'll come a little bit later when we talk in the superintendent comments. So, but no, I just recommend it as reasonable. But I want to thank Mrs. Fisher for all the work she's given to our district. She is, if any of you have had Mrs. Fisher as a teacher, she is fantastic. So we wish her nothing but the best.
I will make a motion that we approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mr. DeGrove?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8B, recommend the board approve the sports medicine wellness education services and sponsorship agreement between Kettering Health Sports Medicine Department, DVA Dayton Sports Medicine Institute, and Kettering Sports Medicine and Valley View Rural Schools. We've had a great presentation by Ms. Oda, I appreciate it. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the recommended contract. A second?
Second.
Discussion. From a cost standpoint, what are we getting under this contract that we're not getting under prior?
So a few things that we're going to be getting. One is a different revenue stream to give us some flexibility. The wellness dollars that Zoda was referring to, that's something that wasn't given. We also were paying for concussion testing kind of on an as-needed basis. So now that's just included in our contract, and also the medical supplies. That was something that we were, as you heard Mr. Marlett referring to before. So actually, I don't even know if Mrs. Sauber's aware of this. She's probably very happy, along with Mrs. Hill, that we're not going to have to funnel all the purchases for medical supplies that they are really just wanting to purchase themselves. So those were all things that were kind of ad hoc, one-offs, and now that's all being embedded into one kind of comprehensive contract. The other thing that I think is very exciting, I'm not sure if you actually mentioned this, with the new building, we currently have 1.5 FTE for trainers, and then this would be going to 2.0 once we go into the new building. And if you look at that contract, there is no increase to the contractual price either. And I'd like to thank Kettering Health for working with us. As people have alluded to, we keep seeing inflationary costs going kind of berserk around everywhere. To have a locked-in price for 5 years with a provider that we've already had a relationship with for outstanding services, I think is going to be a good thing for us. So all of those are things that are not necessarily new to us, but we have to pay for separately in the past, and now that's all being embedded into just one contract to be a little bit more streamlined.
Within the district was consulted as to, okay, how do we want to do this? How does Mr. Marlett take the leading role on that? Or?
So I think, I'm not sure what Mr. Marlett did. I know he reached out to some of the coaches to see about what they were happy with service-wise and what they were wanting to see. As Ms. Oda alluded to, we were working on this even 2 years ago to start with this process. But I was involved only from making sure that we're looking at what the district needs. But Mr. Marlett was really the lead person for what are those specific needs that we needed athletically. And I believe that Mr. Marlett was talking to different coaches upon being hired about what they were seeing. Were they happy with the services that we were getting? As I see Brittany here, the answer was yes. Our actual athletic trainer, I think coaches are pleased about the quality of services that we've got from Kettering Health. But we were looking at from a district perspective, making sure we got those services, making sure that we can streamline that, and also giving the district some flexibility moving forward to ebb and flow with what the district needed.
Can you talk a little bit about the longevity of our relationship with them? I don't know off the top of my
I mean,
head. I know Ricky was my trainer in high school, so.
I would say I'm probably the wrong person to ask about that, but I understand that the relationship has been a long relationship. I don't even know a date. Some of you up here would probably know a date more
I
than I
believe
would.
Nikki came in 1996.
Okay.
Yes.
So it has been a long relationship, but I think it's been a productive one from what I've understood. And so to be able to continue working with them, I think it's going to be really great for our district. And I do appreciate Mrs. Oda listening to our feedback about what we wanted to see and the flexibility that we wanted to have and adapting to what our student athletes need.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. DeGrove?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Roman numeral item 8C, recommend the board approve a quote from Energy Optimizers USA for lighting and controls for the HVAC system at Valley View High School with an amount of $298,000. This quote is through the Ohio Council of Education Purchasing Consortium, will be paid out of our ESSER funds. I was understand what this is all about.
Yeah. So I was going to have Mr. Pugh, if you don't mind, talk about that.
So basically, the control system in this building is from '94. That was the last real upgrade that was done here. It's all air compressor based. Most of it has rotted lines and is non-functional. All the teachers complain they're either too hot or too cold. It's constant. There's no control at all. What this project will do will allow us to get the dampers working again, which is allowing the outside air in. That's part of the ESSER part where they would agree to pay for it. We'll get the outside air in and keep it out as needed better, and also have true digital thermostats. Eliminate the big three-phase compressor in the back and bring the whole building up to somewhat of a standard.
These standards gonna meet the building's future of,
I believe that it will with everything we've discussed for the building future. We'll not be tearing out anything we're putting in during this project.
and, this is a large sum of money. Is there multiple quotes for this?
I'm the kid that asked to go to law school, but I have braces for it. Yes, I actually got 4 quotes on it. They ranged anywhere from $329 to $298, I think was the low quote that I got. Sorry, I had to move up because I don't hear well.
I just wanna make sure we're checking that out.
I think it's 4 quotes,
Those numbers.
but under no CEPC, that's already state term pricing. So really, we don't have to. I did it out of courtesy because it's so much money.
So he's a better one to answer
Yeah.
the technical questions, so I figured we'd.
So you're happy with the price, the system needs updated, and the teachers have let us know about it. Is that fair
I
assessment?
think the kids have let us know about it as well. When you can come in here, it's always a weird phenomenon when we had to do early dismissals due to heat in the other buildings, and the kids come out of high school wearing winter coats because they're cold. Yeah, I think there is a need to improve it. Yet again, I think there are some other buildings. I saw Mrs. Batten here, I think at one time. The other buildings would say we'd like to be able to be freezing at some point because of the air conditioning. The other buildings don't even have that. But I think to Mr. Pugh's point, yes, this is an issue that has been ongoing with staff and students alike to try to get better controls for this building.
Well, if what you're telling me is the case, then not only are we upgrading the system that needs upgraded, but we're probably going to improve some efficiencies as well.
Yes.
If people are walking out cold on hot days.
Yes.
And also, they're opening the windows in the winter because they can't turn heat off. So that will go away. We'll get a lot more efficiencies out of our utility governments also.
And yet again, I think another important part, Mr. Pugh alluded to it, because we're talking about improving the air quality, that allows us to be able to use the ESSER funds, so this isn't coming out of general fund or even permanent improvement funds.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions? Thank you for your comments and recommendation. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Energy Optimizers quote. Do you have a second? Any further conversation, discussions, questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith? Yes. Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Moving down to Roman numeral 8D, recommend the board approve an increase in certified substitute pay from $100 to $110 per day effective March 1st, 2022. Is Mr. Kozak here? I think I saw him over there. At the last board meeting, we addressed these issues. We talked about the difficulties finding people and the economic costs of not being able to get people. And you spent a lot of time thinking about it before that, a lot of times thinking about it since that. Is this your recommendation to the board?
Yep, PE and F put us, we kind of spread it a little bit, so some people sub, they can't sub every day, you know, they can't get in 10 days, but we still want to pull it in. There's good stuff. We got an individual in town that can only do Mondays and Fridays, and he's outstanding. At least my son in high school says that. He does a nice job. In fact, I'm going to work on it with him. We'll get an alternative educator license. So why not give him a little bit of incentive to come in every Monday and Wednesday and Friday if he can. And then the ones who can come in here, give them a little bit of extra push there. And then our building subs who have committed to us since the beginning of the year. And we're giving them a little bump too. So I like it. It spreads it out. It encourages people to sub more. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. And it doesn't put us over the top with, you know, when we talked last time, and Mrs. Smith did some research on that too. You know, there's some, I think Bellbrook was pretty high. There's plenty of schools below us, so we're in that middle range, being at 110.
And in every room that we don't have a teacher or sub or somebody that is administrator able to come in, it's costing us $30 per planning period to get a teacher to fill that space, and compromising their ability to teach their own classes because they don't get their planning periods.
And this is potentially, this is cost saving.
Yeah.
Potentially.
And then the $100 bonus would be for this year only. And then, but we can always do it next year. Who knows what the future's going to bring now? You know, we've lived the pandemic. Who knows what else will come up? And we can always reenact that. But we're comfortable with it. We're used to it, so that would be hard to do.
And so this is presented, and I'm not sure from a parliamentary standpoint, but I mean, this is almost kind of a package deal, right? These three recommendations. Is there any reason why we can't, someone couldn't make a motion to approve D, E, and F altogether?
Well, I have to abstain from that, but I don't have to abstain from that.
Okay, well, let's just do it. And same house.
So,
Let's just do them one time. Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the recommendation to increase certified substitute pay from 100 to 110 per day effective March 1st. So that would be retroactive then?
Yeah.
We have a second?
Second.
Discussion? It's been a well-discussed topic last meeting today. All right, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8E, recommend the board approve an increase in certified building substitute pay from 125 to 130 per day, effective March 1st, 2022. Same issues that we addressed before. I'll make a motion to approve that recommendation.
Second.
Questions, comments? Please call the roll.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisner?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
I'm abstaining.
Roman numeral 8F, recommend the board approve $100 incentive pay for certified substitutes who work 10 days or more in a month, effective March 1st, 2022, and ending at the end of the 2021-2022 school year. Make a motion to approve that recommendation.
Second.
Comments, discussion? I think it furthers our goal of incentivizing people to work more, and money does that. Any more conversation, discussion, questions? Please call the roll.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mrs. Eisner?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 8G, recommend the board approve continued membership in the Ohio High School Athletic Association for 2022-2023. Any discussion on that? If
we'd like to keep competing in sports in the state of Ohio. This is one of those things that we just have to do. Unless we'd like to be, there was a,
Bishop Sycamore.
I wasn't gonna use it by name, but there was a school that made some name for itself this year that was not a part of OHSAA, and we would not like to be associated with that.
All right. So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Please call roll.
Mr. DeGrove?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes. Sad topic I didn't have to get to. Roman numeral 8H. Discussion of student board members and selection process.
I'm gonna turn it over to Maddox. We had a great conversation, and Sophia was not able to be with us tonight. And yet again, they already graduated. Like, that's pretty much a set deal. But I think we had a great conversation about, from their perspective, about how to move forward, so I'd let Mr. Cradle take care of that.
Thank you. So I think the two big takeaways from the meeting that we had about a week or two ago was that we would like to see more of a staggered selection of student board members moving forward. And so that would mean that we would have a junior and a senior on the board, so that when you go to replace that graduating senior, you would then be getting a new junior, and then that junior would then become the senior that next year. So you kind of are constantly getting a new flow of a new student each year. And so, to get to that point, we have to go through kind of an awkward phase, because right now, both of us are going to be gone, and so then we're looking at the process that we kind of decided on was that there will be an application sent out, and we believe that, or we decided that everybody would have access to that, but students who had teacher nominations would be given more, or a higher rate, basically. So, with that, the applications will be due April 8th, and then if we get a large number of students that apply for it, then Mr. Richards and Sophia and I would then interview those students and kind of select the top 2 or 3 or 6. Was that the top number?
I think we were looking for 3 at each grade level, so it would be 6 people total.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yep. And so then those students would then go on to the interviews with the board, and the board would select them from there. And so that would be a junior and senior, but I believe the way that it's working to get to where we want to be, that senior would only serve until January.
So what we were, I think if I can clarify, what we were hoping to get to is we wanted a student board member to actually join up in January. Now our board policy allows for 3 student board members. So what we're kind of saying, and actually Mrs. DeVilli is a pretty good case in point right now with seniors at this time of year. And I appreciate Mr. Cradleball being here, but it's a little busy for seniors at this time of year. So what we kind of said is that coming around in January, February or so, that the senior that was on there would kind of move towards a more of a flexible, be there to advise the newest board member and help bring them along a little bit. But knowing that they couldn't be there as much because being a senior there's a lot of things that they have to get done. So the current junior that we would be putting on would be a relatively short term, but they would still stay on for the whole calendar year. If they wanted to, and if they were able to, we'd allow them to stay on for the full year, because our board policy says we can have up to 3. But we think that would be a better cycle to have, in having people come on in January.
And then that period from January to the end of the school year would also kind of serve as like a little training period, I guess you would call for that. It would be a current sophomore who is selected, who will be a junior that next year, and then they can kind of like coach them up a little bit during that period. And then after the school year, when that senior leaves, and that's when they really step into like a full-time position as student board member.
So first is questions about that timeline and process, because we did it last time where just the board interviewed people and stuff, so we got together and tried to figure that out. Since we didn't want to speak for the board to say this is what you are doing, I think that would have been a bit presumptuous of us. But does that sound acceptable to the board, that you guys would interview 3 people at each of the 2 grade levels, and then you guys would just select one? That's what we kind of did last time. So
I think there's substantial value in the young people who are
Oh, yes. So something else that we talked about was the role, expanding the role that student board members would have. So as of right now, like the role that Sophia and I have is to kind of just like go to the meetings, we inform the board of student issues and concerns. But it's something that I would like to see, I know Mr. Richards would like to see, as well as Sophia, moving forward is kind of giving the student board members a role to make a bigger impact on the school and the community. And so one thing that Mr. Richards had suggested that I like the idea of is those student board members would periodically travel to the different buildings and kind of like talk to those students and get to know what their concerns are, because we are the student board members, not just the high school student board members. So I like that idea of kind of expanding the influence that the student board member would have. And then one thing that I personally like the idea of, and it was kind of pitched when this position was first created, when I applied for it, was sort of a community project that those board members would be kind of responsible for conducting that school year, so while they are student board members, so that they have more of a substantial impact on the community.
So what you have in mind is essentially you pitch a project to the board, and then the board empowers you, and whether that's with funding, whether that's with support, whether that's with authority to go, you run this. That's what you have in mind.
Pretty much, yeah.
I'd also like to point out that Maddox and Sophia have represented our district exceptionally well with the state legislators. And I think they truly have represented value with honor and distinction. For those who know Maddox and Sophia, that's not a shock. They would represent us very well, but I do want to thank them. His term is not up yet, he's not done. We can still try to fail him, I think, but they have both represented our district exceptionally well with our representing us at even the state level with legislators.
Is there anything you did to take action on that?
No, we just wanted feedback on that. We felt a little bit weird telling the board, hey, this is what you guys are doing, so we wanted to get feedback to see if this process would be satisfactory with you. I don't think there's a vote necessary, just we were looking for feedback.
Any thoughts? Great, thanks. Roman numeral 8I, discuss the naming of a locker room located at National Field.
Yeah, it's actually, had several people in the community come forward wanting to get a plaque honoring Kenny Zink for his years of service as 7th and 8th grade football coach and also wrestling. It doesn't have to be named the locker room, it's just a plaque honoring him for his years of service, 7th and 8th grade football coach and wrestling. And there's community members that would help pay for that. We just want the opportunity to put it on the building down there, Spirit Wear Shop or somewhere to be honored. And I would make that motion.
I would second that motion. Any discussion? So just so we're clear, folks in the community have offered to cover the cost of that, and they're just asking for permission to place it on the board project.
Yes. In honor of Kenny Zink.
Absolutely.
For years service.
Absolutely. Any questions, comments? I have a comment. As a bit of an outsider, I didn't know who Kenny Zink was in terms of coaching history until this week, when I'm getting reached out to people saying we need to do something to honor Kenny Zink. And so it's been enlightening to me, and so I think it's a great thing that we came up with the idea. Please call roll.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser?
Yes.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
Roman numeral 9, superintendent's comments.
I'll try to be as brief as possible. One, and I know I've kind of updated the board a little bit, we might be looking at how we change that structure for tuition payment students for next year, where we would require payments to be made at the onset of the school year. I think that's just a more streamlined process for us working with the treasurer's office. So I just want to kind of publicly talk about that. And if any of these you want to ask questions about, by all means, you can stop me. Van drivers, it's an issue that we currently have, where we have Mr. Depew does a daily run, I think Mr. Emmerich does a daily run, Mr. Fott does a run sometimes. So van drivers is something that we need to keep looking at. That's an issue for us, and I just want to make sure the board was aware of that. That is actually tied in with probably classified pay in general across the board. You heard the YMCA talk about different positions. It is awfully difficult when you're competing against Amazon and you pay $20 an hour plus benefits and set hours. So that's something that we're going to have to keep exploring. Literacy coach, and I do have Mr. Thomas that is here. I know I sent to you a proposal that we're looking at for the district with a literacy coach and some rationale behind it. One, with COVID and with literacy losses, focusing on literacy, especially in our younger grades, is important. Two, the legislature has passed a law addressing dyslexia. It's a very well-intentioned law, good purpose. Yet again, no extra funds that came with that, but that's something that we're going to need to be able to address, and I think this proposal allows us some flexibility of staffing to handle that, and yet again, that will be used with ESSER funds as we move forward. Yes.
I'm dating myself here.
Okay.
But there used to be, what was it, the Title I program?
Yes, we still have that.
We still have that.
Yes.
So how would that literacy coach essentially, how would that work in?
So Title I, and Mrs. Thomas, I'm sure will correct me if I say anything incorrect, but Title I is more of a specific intervention for a set group of students. When we're talking about a literacy coach, we're really talking about how to work with all of our teachers to help improve reading fluencies and reading skills and strategies across the classroom. I'll try not to get too technical in talking about MTSS and various things that way, but we want to make certain that we have initial skills in place for at like a Tier 1 level that can be appropriate for all kids. When it comes to literacy, then when we're talking about dyslexia, as we have to look at screening mechanisms for kids that may or may not qualify for that, we need to know how to work with those kids. And so it's a train-the-trainer kind of mentality. It's not a specific intervention for a specific kid. It's working with our staff to make sure all of our staff have the skills to better help all of our kids, wherever they are on the literacy spectrum. You've got kids that come in, I keep quoting Mr. Phillips on this, but kids that go to KRA screening and they're reading full-on books as soon-to-be kindergartners, and then you have kids that are going to kindergarten where their parents go, I didn't know I was supposed to be reading to my kid. We have to educate kids that cross that entire spectrum, and so I think having a literacy position will better enable the district to meet the needs of all of our kids. I think we're having meetings with the admin team, and that's included tomorrow, about how we can move forward with COVID. This is a good thing, with COVID no longer being the focal point. It's been now 2 years of COVID, and I don't know if anybody else does it. I check it every so often, pull up that screen. I can actually pull it up for people. It's from the CDC that talks about colors, and this is now the map of the United States. And most of it's green. Montgomery County, we are now green, which is a good thing. But I think we need to start now focusing. COVID has been so front and center for everything that we've had to do for 2 years. I think talking about how we reacclimate to COVID, hopefully, and I'll knock on wood here, being more in our rearview mirror. It's not a victory over COVID. That's never going to happen. But it's not part of the daily grind, the daily focal points that it has been for us. And I think that's an opportunity just to look at some ways to celebrate that a little bit. If we haven't learned anything this past year, that we should take moments to celebrate things when we have the opportunity. And I just forwarded to the board today, talking about preschool fees. Our preschool fees are very nice, and that's great. We offer a fantastic preschool. Our preschool teachers do a fantastic job, but when we look at making sure that our price points are priced kind of appropriately with comparison areas, that might be something that we take a look at addressing. We would not address that overnight to just go from one amount to a much higher amount. But Mr. Phillips and I have talked about maybe looking at a staggered approach where we gradually increase those preschool fees for those typical students, so that it's a little bit more in line with our other areas. And then my last one is just a fun celebration. I got to go Sunday, to the CTC National Technical Honor Society presentation, and I think we had valued 9 or 10 kids that were represented there. And I think it's important for everybody to know that even when our kids go to the CTC, they're still our kids, and we're really proud of the work that they all do. So those are my items for today.
Roman numeral item 10, board member comments. Start with you at the end there, Max.
So really there's not a whole lot going on as of recently other than Jameson Cook. When Jameson Cook competed at the state competition for swim, and Zach Myers competed on the state level for wrestling, so big congrats to them for that. Also, spring sports are starting to get underway, we're starting to get into the thick of it. I believe most of those teams start competing right after spring break, which is next week. And I know track, our first meet is that Tuesday right after. So we're really excited for that to start. And we're all excited for spring break next week. It's going to be very nice to have that break. And as a senior with no end of year state tests, I'm really enjoying this 2-hour delay policy that we have, because that's a win-win. So also, Kara Holhouse over the weekend, she's a senior, she went to the Camp Riley, I believe it's called, with the Interact, and it was a leadership-based training, and she really enjoyed that experience. So that's another fun thing that we have going on here that is offered to our students. So that's all I have for you guys.
I'm excited for spring break and baseball season and track and sunshine.
Yes.
That's all I have. Yeah.
So I was able to join Austin Halsey and Todd Kazarek to the Montgomery County Educational Service Center Business Advisory Council meeting this last month. It was great to be able to represent our board and to attend. There's some really phenomenal things going on with it. What I really felt that I really enjoyed about it was that they're really trying to engage community members, business members into being an active part in the education for our students in our community. Looking from cradle to career. I heard that term so many times during that meeting, and they even actually highlighted Brookville schools and how they were going about, even as early as preschool, engaging these kids to think about what they want to be when they grow up, and then through the years, letting them see how it is they have to get there in order to see those goals be actuated. So it was a really, really great dinner. I really enjoyed it, and I would be very interested if the board would like to consider possibly having a representative attend one of the subgroup committees. I'm very interested in being part of the parent and community engagement subgroup committee, where I can see what I might be able to do as a board member to help our community get really engaged more so than what we already are doing. So, and then also I was able to participate with a webinar through the Ohio Board, School Board Association regarding evaluations for treasurers and superintendents. So I participated in that webinar. It was very insightful, and hoping to bring back some ideas for the board to think about, and maybe we can make that an agenda item for next month. So love the musical. If Sophie was here, I would say, that she was just phenomenal. And my daughter and I watched it together, and of course my daughter is a substitute teacher here, and she had to tell Sophie she really thought it was pretty cool, the Harry Potter-esque approach that Sophie took with her role. It was pretty interesting for sure.
Yeah, I just want to thank Mrs. Mitchell for all of her service to the district. We are going to miss her greatly, but it would be great if she can help us out in some capacity moving forward. And then just real quick, I had a couple of policies that I wanted the policy committee to potentially take a look at. One is 5330, exclusive medication. Our policy actually is requiring our parents to, if they have a prescription that they would like the school to administer during the day, that has been prescribed obviously by a physician or nurse practitioner, there's a form apparently that we're asking folks to fill out, and then the parent's signature, but then we're also requiring that the parent turn around and ask the physician to sign that second form after the medication has already been prescribed. And so I would just like us to look at that. It seems a little redundant. Since the medication has been prescribed, it's being presented in, the bottle that it's prescribed in, the instructions and the prescribed information on the label. I just don't want parents to have to,
Doesn't the prescription bottle have the doctor's name on it that they prescribe?
as far as yes, as far as any medication I've ever been personally prescribed, that's my understanding.
Okay.
I have a little insight on
Sure.
that. I fill out a lot of those forms as a provider, and the forms for most school districts, I haven't looked at our particular form in a while. But they're looking for side effects, emergency contacts, what do we do if something goes wrong with that child and they develop a reaction to it. And I think the prescription label itself doesn't quite give you all that information.
Sure.
The pharmacy does give you a handout with a list of thousands of potential side effects, but that usually gets tossed by most people when you pick up a prescription.
Sure.
So, and I don't know if there's a legal ramification regarding that for the school district if it didn't have those particular questions answered on the form. And I'm not sure that I would be fully trusting that the parent would be the one that would be the expert to write down the side effects.
Oh, no, absolutely. And that's not
I think that would
necessarily.
be the piece that we might need to keep at as far as seeing, what can be pared down. And I know as a provider, I love the opportunity to fill out something online if I can, and or fax it directly to kind of circumvent the parent piece whenever possible. But I realize you also have to parent get permission if the child receives that.
Right, no, absolutely. And I believe our medication is administered by our nurse, our licensed nurse as well, so. Just something to take a look at. It doesn't look like we've taken a look at it since 2018, where that was the last time it was revised. And then this isn't necessarily something to take a look at, but for us to be aware, I know that in the last board meeting minutes, when we took a vote to approve contracts, and there was a motion, I believe, by Mr. DeGroat to separate out some contracts, and then we subsequently voted. But I just wanted to draw attention to the fact that in our bylaws, a member of the board may request that any item be removed from the consent resolution. No vote of the board will be required to remove an item from the consent agenda. A single member's request shall cause it to be relocated as an action item eligible for discussion. So we didn't procedurally handle that properly, because subsequently it ended up that any yes vote or no vote was for all contracts. And I don't think that that is the intention of that procedure, is to subsequently vote against every contract in the consent agenda. So I just wanted to draw our attention to that, so that moving forward, there's nothing we can do about it now, but that moving forward, that any board member, if you want something separated out, that does not require a vote to do so. And that's all.
I think most everybody, going this late, most everybody's covered everything. I also look forward to giving the students a break here with spring break, and spring season's a busy time for everybody. I just hope everybody has a good spring season, stays healthy, and be safe.
And over the last, I will say once again, Sophia was awesome. Hit the musical, if you got a chance to watch her, she was just great. And all the kids were just awesome. And so it's a good thing. We have a great program. I feel like it's in really good hands. You wonder when that transition happens, we're going to miss a beat, and it's just a nice, smooth transition for our theater program. So that was really great. Not necessarily directly school related, but I do like to draw attention to the fact that we've seen this in the last week or so, just with our community. We do have kids from time to time that have to face health issues and stuff like that. And I just love the way this community pulls together. The shows of support for our kids, shows of support for families when they face tragedy and difficulty. We have a great community in regards to that, and I'm very thankful for it. So that's really the last of my comments. Roman numeral 11, executive session to continue the employment and or consider the employment and or compensation of a public employee. I'm going to make a motion that we go into executive session for that purpose. I do believe, I'm also going to include in that motion that we invite Mrs. Cox in for a portion of the executive session, and then we invite Laura in for a portion of the executive session as well. And Valerie, of course. Okay. Absolutely. Okay.
Second that.
So, yeah, you'll be in a little bit, just short, absolutely. So we have a motion second. Call roll on that.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
Mr. DeGrove?
Yes.
Mrs. Iser?
Yes.
Mr. Seymour?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes.
So we will be going into executive session. By rule, we cannot adjourn without reconvening. But I want everybody to know there will not be any business handled after the executive session. There will be no votes taken nor issues discussed. So if you'd like to stick around and watch an adjournment, feel free.